Chapter 8. Growing Pains. Tadano Hitohito stood in the gymnasium, staring blankly at the volleyball in his hand. It was his turn to serve, but all he could think about was how off everything felt lately. His balance was strange, like his body was shifting in ways he wasn't used to. It didn't help that his classmates were watching him with a mix of curiosity and amusement. "Come on, Tadano. Serve already," Naimi called out, waving from the other side of the net. "Yeah, don't hold back," Yamai added, her eyes sparkling with her usual unsettling intensity. Tadano sighed, adjusting his grip on the ball. He took a step forward, tossed the ball into the air, and swung his arm. Instead of the clean, powerful hit he'd been aiming for, the ball barely grazed his fingertips, wobbling weakly over the net before bouncing harmlessly onto the floor. The gym erupted into laughter. "Tadano, what was that?" Naimi shouted, clutching their side. "Are you trying to lose on purpose?" "I'm not." "Oh, never mind," Tadano muttered, his face burning. The truth was, his body just didn't feel like his anymore. His shoulders were narrower, his arms slimmer, and his center of gravity had shifted thanks to the changes in his hips and chest. Even something as simple as throwing a ball felt different, awkward, like he was learning how to move all over again. He tugged at the hem of his gym shirt, which clung uncomfortably to his chest. It was a men's shirt, but it no longer fit properly. His chest, which had been small but noticeable a few weeks ago, was now undeniably feminine. Every time he moved, he could feel the slight bounce, the faint pull of the fabric against his skin. "Tadano-kun, are you okay?" Komi's soft voice broke through his thoughts. He turned to see her standing nearby, her head tilted in concern. She was holding a water bottle, which she offered to him with both hands. "Thanks," he said, taking the bottle and gulping down the water. Komi nodded, her eyes lingering on him for a moment, before she returned to her place in line. After gym class, Tadano trudged back to the locker room, his body aching in ways he couldn't quite explain. He sat down on the bench, staring at his reflection in the mirror across the room. His voice, his smell, even his posture, everything about him was different now. Morning, routine mishaps. The next morning, Tadano's alarm blared at 7:00 a.m. sharp point. He groaned, rolling over and nearly toppling off the bed as his now wider hips caught the edge of the mattress. "Every day," he muttered, pulling himself upright. His morning routine had become a carefully orchestrated balancing act. First, he brushed his teeth, trying not to think too hard about the soft, delicate face staring back at him in the mirror. Then came the ordeal of getting dressed. His school uniform, a girl's uniform, complete with a pleated skirt and fitted blazer, had become almost second nature to him at this point. Almost. "Why are these buttons so small?" he grumbled, fumbling with the tiny buttons on his blouse. Once he was dressed, he moved on to his hair. Komi had given him a crash course in hair care, complete with a step-by-step guide on brushing, detangling and styling. Even so, it was a struggle. His long black hair had a mind of its own, and no matter how much he brushed it, it always seemed to fall into his face at the worst possible moments. After 30 minutes of wrestling with his hair, he finally managed to tie it back into a loose ponytail. It wasn't perfect, but it would have to do. Classroom confusion. By the time Tadano arrived at school, he was already bracing himself for the inevitable confusion. Sure enough, as he walked into the classroom, several of his classmates froze mid-conversation, their eyes darting between him and Komi. "Oh no, there's two of them now," Naimi declared, throwing their hands in the air. Tadano-kun? Agari timidly asked, her head tilting as she stared at him. Or is it Komi-san? It's me, Tadano said flatly, sliding into his seat. Yamai, who had been watching him like a hawk since he walked in, suddenly leaned forward, her voice low and conspiratorial. Tadano-kun, she whispered. You smell different. He blinked. What? You smell nice. Like Kami-sama. Tadano's face turned crimson. I don't. What does that even mean? It means you've become even more perfect, Yamai declared, clasping her hands together. Please, stop, Tadano begged, sinking lower into his seat. Komi, who had been quietly observing the exchange, reached into her bag and pulled out a small notebook. She scribbled something down and slid it across the desk to him. Oh, it's okay. You're doing great. Tadano read the note, his shoulders relaxing slightly. He glanced at Komi, who offered him a small, encouraging smile. Thanks, he said softly. The final changes. As the weeks went on, Tadano's transformation neared its completion. His voice, once awkwardly caught between masculine and feminine, now sounded identical to Komi. It was soft, melodic, and unmistakably feminine. His figure had also reached its final form. His chest was fully developed, his waist narrow and shapely, and his hips wide and curvy. Even his legs, once lanky and awkward, were now smooth and toned. The most unsettling part, however, was his scent. No matter what he did, he couldn't shake the slight floral fragrance that seemed to cling to him. It wasn't perfume. It was just him. One afternoon, as he walked through the hallway, a group of first-year students stopped and stared at him. Komi-senpai, one of them called out. He turned, confused. What? The students froze, their faces turning red. Oh no, we're so sorry. We thought you were Komi-senpai. Tadano sighed. It's fine. Happens all the time. Komi. Support? Despite the awkwardness, Tadano found himself relying more and more on Komi. She was always there with a quiet smile or a helpful gesture, whether it was fixing his hair, lending him a spare hair tie, or simply sitting next to him during lunch. One afternoon, as they walked home together, Komi suddenly stopped and turned to him. Tadano blinked. What's wrong? She hesitated, then pulled out her notebook and began writing. You've been amazing through all of this. I'm proud of you. Tadano stared at the note, his chest tightening. Thanks, Komi. That means a lot. Komi smiled, her cheeks turning pink. For the first time in weeks, Tadano felt like things might actually be okay.